ourselves. So my name is Brian Grossman. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Colorado Springs Business Journal and the Independent. Helen, you are to my left.
Hey, I'm Helen Robinson. I'm the managing editor of the Business Journal.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
So,
Hi, my name is Alyssa Smith. I am the associate editor of the Indy.
Hi, Alyssa.
Mary Jo.
I'm Mary Jo Mead. I'm the copy editor for the Indy, CSBJ, and the Southeast Express.
Great. Hi, Mary J. Mary J, you said?
Mary Jo.
Mary Jo.
Close enough.
Anthony, did you want to introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll get to Nancy.
Yeah, my name's Anthony Carlson. I'm Nancy's campaign manager. Some of you might know me from my work of helping District 11 Pastor Mill Levy, Harrison School District 2 with their bond in 2018. And then last year, I worked with District 11 and the city on the respective Tabor issues to get those passed at the ballot in 2020. So you may not know me, but you may have interacted with my work sometime over the past 4 years.
Did you work with Lauren Hugg on the District 11 stuff?
I did. Her and I tag teamed that one, and we're pretty much at each other's hip for 6 months,
Gotcha.
working the business community and other folks in town to get them on board.
Okay. Well, this isn't about you, Anthony. Let's get to Nancy. Nancy, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. It's not about
what?
Anthony, but I would say I really don't think I could be doing this without Anthony.
Okay. Well, we can talk about him too.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm happy to tell you about myself. In fact, maybe that's a good place to start. I never thought in a million years I would be running for any public office. In fact, if you'd asked me a year ago if I was going to be running for public office, I probably would have said, yeah, nope, no, not at all. So yeah, I'm a 30-year resident of Colorado Springs, actually 30 plus 4 years as a kid on the Air Force Academy when my dad taught there in the 69 to 71-ish, and fell in love with Colorado Springs and wanted to come back here. Re-met my husband, who I knew in high school, but re-met him in Chicago after graduate school or during graduate school. And we decided that we wanted to move west, and we ended up selecting Colorado Springs as a place to move. We moved here without jobs in 1990 and have been here ever since. So that's kind of my story of being in Colorado Springs. I'd like to tell you a little bit about first how I want to, how I'm conducting my campaign actually, and how I want to serve on City Council before I get to my why and my what. Because the how is pretty important to me, I think, in my experiences as a leader, and I'll tell more about that later. But I really want very much to engage our citizenry. I want to impact civic engagement in the process of governance, and also I'm very collaborative. So engaging citizens and being really collaborative in the work that we do is very important to me. And so I really, that's very much how I intend to lead while I'm in City Council. And so while I'm knocking on doors and meeting with people and having conversations, I'm letting them know that this won't be the only time you're going to see me, at your door or on a Zoom screen. I want to continue to keep the relationship going. I want you to know who I am and be able to be informed and have a voice. So that's important to me. Why I think I'm running, and really why people I think should be voting for me, has to do with my life experience. I started out as a clinical social worker. I just did therapy. I came here with my master's in social work, and I got my license in Colorado, a few months after we moved here, and started practicing clinically. And I had a clinical practice for a number of years, and then moved into the management of behavioral health. I ended up actually ultimately as the COO for a public-private partnership that was formed in like 1994, that was formed actually through a lawsuit, but ended up becoming a very effective public-private partnership with a for-profit behavioral health company and not-for-profit mental health centers, serving 43 counties of Colorado's 63 counties. And we were managing, the state of Colorado was shifting its Medicaid financing from a fee-for-service model to a capitated model. So being a little more fiscally conservative and careful with the dollars, while also increasing the service to the consumers of behavioral health care, mental health care. And so I did that for a number of years, and I learned a lot in that process of working in a public-private partnership and finding common values. And so that's a part of the experience that I bring. And then I moved from that experience actually to being contacted by the Center for Creative Leadership to they were working on bringing more coaches into their work. As you all, I think, know, or this is on social media, for those who don't know, the Center for Creative Leadership is a international organization headquartered in North Carolina, but has a significant campus here and serves folks locally as well as globally. They were looking to bring on more coaches and wanted to bring on coaches with a business experience as well as psychological. So their history had been kind of more psychologically based. And I brought both of those things, and they asked if I wanted to be trained. And so I said yes, absolutely. It was kind of perfect timing for me. And I started doing that in 2002, 2003. And I've been doing that ever since. So mostly as a contractor in my own small business, working for the center. I did go in for 4 years as a faculty member and came back out. And that's what I've been doing. And still to this day I'm doing, although COVID hit and it impacted, my business as everybody's pretty significantly. And so with the downtime, time to reflect, do some more bike riding, more hiking, more walking my dog, more gardening, more reading, more reflecting on the injustices in the world and so forth, and turning 60 this summer. All of those things combined, along with rereading my dad's autobiography, who is a huge inspiration for me. He left quite a legacy in Colorado Springs. You may have heard of the Homefront Cares, which is now the Homefront Network. He was co-founder of that. He started the Senior Resource Council. He has quite a few awards named after him in town. He died in 2010, but his legacy and his service is pretty significant for me in my personal life. And while I've always had some kind of community service that I've done while I've been a professional, I was reminded of his choice to have a third half of his life, which was about community service. And all that reflection and turning 60 and so forth, I literally was sitting on my front porch in August, and I heard a voice, and I like to say, I don't know if it was inside my head or outside my head, but it was a clear sense of direction that said, maybe you should consider running for city council. And I've had people tell me for 20 years, you should be running for something. And as I said, I've always said, no, not just no, but hell no. So here I am. I mean, that's really, I started exploring. One of my first folks that I reached out to was Joe Gabler to find out about, tell me about it. I want to understand what it's like. Give me the ins and outs. Who should I be talking to? What are the questions I should be asking? What have you been working on that, you would want to see continued? So I've made the decision, and here I am, and now I'm running, and I guess I'll stop there and let you ask a question or.
Okay. Are you still doing contract work on the side?
I do a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Not a full-time job or anything?
No, not at all. And in fact, it's funny, actually, just about a half an hour ago, I finished a call with a coaching client who re-engaged with me and said, he happened to know that I was running for city council. And he said, are you still going to be doing this, or am I one of your kind of legacy clients that you'll still see? And I said, I've got a handful of you that I will continue to make time for. But truly, I don't see myself, it was a decision to not rebuild my business in going for city council, because I really think it's a full-time job. It's beyond a full-time job. And I'm very fortunate and quite privileged in that I'm able to do it with the pay that is awarded a city council person. My husband's retired District 11 school teacher. For we've got para, we've saved well. We've gotten to ourselves to a place where I don't have to work. So I feel really fortunate about that.
Okay. What specifically are your priorities if you're elected?
Yeah, so I would say overall, it's really managing growth responsibly. I'm hearing from constituents that we're growing fast. There's a lot of feeling about that in all kinds of ways. So because growth is going to happen, we're not going to stop that, but I want to do it responsibly. I really want to have some strong neighborhoods. I think our neighborhoods are what make our community. So having strong neighborhoods and local business is really super important. It's the lifeblood of it. I think it's what makes our economy super strong. I also have a real heart for open space, but if I were to narrow it down to three, it would be that kind of responsible growth, strong neighborhoods, which encompasses a lot of things, in small business, local thriving economy.
Okay. Those are sort of citywide issues. Are there things within your district specifically that you see needing attention?
Well, I happen to live in the Old North End and near Patty Jewett, and there's been a lot of concern about PUDs and infill and so forth. So I think addressing the needs of the neighborhoods in my district closer to downtown is important. But as you move further, we go all the way out to Powers, and there's a lot of neighborhoods there. I've been walking with many seniors, a lot of older people that those neighborhoods that haven't quite turned over. And I think attention to how those neighborhoods are going to be redeveloped as time goes on. Schools, the city council isn't responsible for schools, of course, but there's an interface, and the schools in the District 5 area that are struggling or maybe closing potentially are going to impact our neighborhoods. So that's something I want to be aware of and work in collaboration with the school board on, and be connected. So it's an important part of a neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you do to assist small businesses that have been negatively impacted by COVID-19?
Yeah. Well, I think first and foremost, understanding the red tape that they have to face. I was just on a call actually yesterday with the Women's Chamber and Hispanic Chamber, and can't remember the name of the executive director right now. I don't have it right in front of me, but she spoke very passionately about the challenges that small businesses have faced as it relates to COVID, and I can appreciate that too as a small business owner. So working to remove red tape, working with whatever state legislation to ensure that resources of city, whatever we can do to make sure that the resources that small businesses need can get them. I would offer as kind of an example of a small business, and this is not so much related to COVID, but just the reality of being a small business owner or a local business owner in Colorado Springs. I think we've done a very nice job of making it possible for national organizations such as Amazon to come, and Shields and so forth, and they've gotten some nice incentives to make that work. I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but I think about a company like Red Lake Brewing, who is a local vet owned, makes a pretty fabulous beer, by the way, set of beers, and is actually working to be exporting out of our state, probably I believe the first brewery to do that in Colorado Springs, and bringing a lot of money into Colorado Springs, having some challenges with utilities and some other things that he needs to be successful. So I think it's those kinds of things, is really prioritizing our local small businesses as much as our national companies.
I lost my place here. What can be done to make city government more inclusive and diverse?
Well, in terms of inclusivity and diversity, I think when you pay city council members $62.50 a year, you're not going to get, you are going to get a very particular type of person, someone who is for whatever reason, not needing to earn money. Is privileged, and so I think addressing that is important. My understanding is that there's been some real effort to address that. I'm not making that a platform piece, because I don't want it to be seen as I'm doing it for me. I think it's really for the city and for inclusivity and diversity. That we're almost 500,000 people. We're a large city, becoming pretty soon we're going to be larger than Denver is the projection, right? The city of Denver really being a major metropolitan area, urban area, and our government, our city government, needs to reflect the importance of the role in governing. And so I think that's one way to address it. I think the other way, honestly, is to continue to connect with and reach out to all the communities, and how can we, as I'm meeting with folks, like, how can we help encourage others to learn more about their city government and what's involved, and to find, whether it's through organizations like the Quad, Jake Eichengreen's work with the Quad, others, to say, how can we help build that kind of capability, talent, and interest for local city government, I think would be another way that we could address that as well.
How would you address the affordable housing crisis in the city?
Well, look, that it's a huge crisis. It's not just a crisis in Colorado Springs, it's a crisis in our whole country. It's gnarly challenge. The city of Colorado Springs has a plan called Home COS, which by the way, I'm sure you all know this. I've been learning a lot about our city as I've been exploring the running. And we not only have Plan COS, which I think has a pretty relatively recent, decent visibility, which it really isn't a plan. It's more of a vision from my perspective that needs some plans. But there's Retool COS, Connect COS, Historic COS, Home COS, which is about housing, Engage COS, Public Art COS. So I wanted to get that in there. And there's probably more that I haven't found yet, by the way. But I think I might start with what have we already done? What is Colorado Springs already doing with Home COS? There's also some nonprofits in town that are working on this, and I'm blanking on their names right now. I don't have them right in front of me, but I could find them. I just am aware of being recorded and feeling a little nervous about that. But I would, bring them into the picture, I think we need to bring everybody, the right stakeholders to the table, right? The developers, the people in need. It's everything from, and it conjures up a lot of different ideas for people. They either think about the homeless, or maybe it's just the, like my son and daughter-in-law who have, pretty low wage earning jobs and need to be able to afford a place, right? So that the workers of all kinds, and even, the Chamber of Commerce has told me, we have companies we just had a company leave Colorado Springs recently that just left because they couldn't, their workers couldn't afford to live here. So the point is, there's a broad spectrum, and we have to bring a lot of different people to the table. So I don't have a magic bullet solution. I don't think anybody does, but I've got the desire and the energy to continue to try to bring people to the table so that we can address that challenge. And infill is, one way to do that. There's a lot of tools. There's just a lot of tools to address it, and we need to bring them all to bear.
You mentioned homelessness, which, affordable housing is a piece of homelessness, but it's also its own problem to solve. How would you address the homelessness issue?
Again, I know there are a lot of people working on that. I don't have a plan to address homelessness. I think it's something we need to pay attention to. We need to care about every person that is in Colorado Springs, whether they have a home over their heads or not. There's work that's being done. I know we have the crisis response or a homeless, and I don't want to confuse the crisis. There's a team that goes out to address homelessness, folks who are homeless. That is a combination of police, I believe, and others. And I, would want to expand and look at those kinds of services. Look at, there's a lot of causes. There's some, I know the Downtown Partnership has had some efforts. I just am aware that there are a lot of different, disparate, maybe not disparate, but different people working on the issue. Again, I would come to, and maybe they are working together. I don't know, but that would be a first question I would ask is, how are we working together in that regard? Yeah, so I'll just stop there.
Okay. Recreational marijuana in the city, for or against?
I think the voters need to decide.
Is that it?
Look, we're letting a lot of revenue out of the city, and you don't have to drive very far to get it. So I would say that the voters should be able to make that decision about, is that revenue we want to keep in the city of Colorado Springs.
Okay, so you would leave it to the voters?
I would leave it to the voters.
Gotcha. The city implemented its first Law Enforcement Transparency and Accountability Commission last year, LETAC. What are your thoughts about LETAC and anything you would do to bolster it or change it?
Well, if full disclosure, my husband is on the LETAC.
Oh,
I
okay.
need to let you know that. Steve Kern is my husband and he's on the LETAC. So I know it's actually a rather controversial sort of committee within the community and feeling like it has no teeth. Some people are just really unhappy about that. I think it's a step. I'm probably a little bit more like, let's just keep moving in the right direction, and it is a step that we need to take. Yeah, I'm glad that they're looking at the issues that they're looking at. I'm glad that we have some dedication to addressing whatever biases might be in our police force, and how do we ensure that our police are serving the population with as much equity and equality as possible. And I look forward to the recommendations that come from the LETAC.
How do you feel about having to also work as a utilities board member if you're elected to city council? How comfortable are you with utilities?
I think a lot about that. I think a lot about that. Honestly, it's a pretty big job to be the board of directors for a $3 billion a year. Excuse me, I'm gonna turn my notifications off there. Let me get my thought back. Yeah, it's a big job, and being a board of directors, I work with many CEOs, and I've worked with corporations large and small. I've been on boards myself, not at that level before, more nonprofit local boards. I do appreciate the importance of good governance, and I think a good board member needs to operate at the high level, and I'm not going to become an expert in utilities. I don't suspect that Aram would want that from a board member. I think he would want, and the people of Colorado Springs would want board members who are asking good questions, looking at the strategy, looking at the future of water. I mean, it's a huge responsibility. So I won't take it lightly. I'm actually meeting with him next week, and I'm looking forward to finding out about, how can I, as quickly as possible, come up to speed and be the kind of board member that the utilities company needs and that the city of Colorado Springs needs. So I think having an appreciation for governance, and having worked in corporations before and interviewed, hundreds of board members for CEOs that I work with, I feel like I have as much of a leg up as anybody who comes into city council might to serve on the board of directors.
Do you have opinions about the closure of Drake and increasing renewable energy use in the city?
I'm sorry, can you ask that one more time?
Yeah, do you have a stance on the closure of the Drake power plant and increasing renewable energy resources?
Oh, I'm thrilled about it. I'm thrilled. I think it's fantastic.
Yep.
I'm glad it got sped up. I think are moving in that direction. The utilities company strategy for renewable energy is fantastic. We have to keep pushing in that direction, I believe. And how that land gets reclaimed, or whatever the right language is there, how it gets made usable again, and then how we choose to use it, that process I think is going to be super important. And that's probably it's prime real estate, right? But it's also just it's a gateway to the downtown from the mountains, and I think we just need to be really visionary and thoughtful, and again inclusionary and equitable, and respectful of the land itself. I mean, it's in a watershed, right? So it's just super important how we do that, and I'm thrilled that we're heading in that direction.
You spoke a little bit about this earlier, but can you talk about your public service involvement?
Yeah, so I served for 7 years on the board of CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates, and my last year with them was as the board president, and continued to do work and support of them after I left the board. I've also done a fair amount of, I would say, pretty much pro bono work and coaching with a lot of our nonprofits in town. I won't name them out of protection for that work, but you know, I care deeply about our local nonprofits. I've been a very active member since 1992 of a downtown church, First Congregational Church, United Church of Christ, down on the corner of St. Vrain and Tejon. And that's a very active community, cares very much about social justice issues. And so in multiple ways, I was the, excuse me, I was the moderator of that church and led what essentially is a board for that church as well. And then I've also served on the Illumination Project, which was it's kind of been on hold with COVID. The Center for Creative Leadership has a partnership with the police and working on citizen police dialogue. And I served as a facilitator for that for a couple of years before COVID hit, 2 or 3 years. And just paying attention to my neighbors and helping my neighbors out, and you know, just lots of local things.
How do you collaborate with those that may not share the same opinions as you?
I start by listening and trying to understand, you know, what people's perspective is. I think we have lost the ability to really listen. I'm deeply concerned actually about how polarized we are as a society and on our national politics. And I have concern about that potentially even creeping into our city government. I don't think the desire is there, but I want to make sure it stays that way. I want to make sure it stays a nonpartisan and a locally focused bit of government. You know, start by listening, and I have a perspective, a belief that different sides have ultimately kind of core values that they care about, and that values really come in pairs, and there's not a value that I can't find value in, right? I mean, I'll just take maybe the most polarized set of values in our country right now, which is freedom and equality. And I think those are both super important values. I can find the common ground, and I can find the value of anybody that I'm talking with, even if I might disagree with where we're going or a way to get there. I think we need to have good arguments. There's good ways to have good arguments where we really listen to the values of each other, and the fear that if your value takes over mine, what am I going to lose? And so that's how, I mean, and it's not how I would do it, it's how I do it. That's how I lead. That's how I work in organizations. That's how I coach. I've been doing that work for a couple of decades now. And I think I'm pretty uniquely qualified of among the 5 people running right now to bring that into office.
Okay. Can you talk about a mistake you've made and what you've done to make it better?
Which one? Okay, I was not prepared for this question. It's always such a good question. I want to give it its due. Can we hit pause on the record so I can think about it?
We can come back to it. You're not the first one to have that reaction, so that's.
Yeah. No, it's a great question, right? It's a super question because I'm actually, hang on a second.
Sure.
This is in my office.
You knew the question was coming, I think.
Well, I didn't actually, but I have. It's a part of my. It's a part of my ethos. It's a part of my value. It's a part of when I coach people. We tend to be very perfectionistic, and we get really hard on ourselves. And mistakes are just honestly opportunities to learn and grow. Mm-hmm. So I actually try to, not that I purposefully want to go out and make mistakes. They're just going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so how we look at them and how we learn from them is everything. I just think our mindset about how we deal with mistakes is honestly with you know, compassion for ourselves and others when mistakes are made, and vulnerability, and then hopefully not making the same mistake twice. So I still haven't thought of my mistake, but
I was gonna say, if you want to think of a specific example, we'll go on to the next question.
Yeah, thank you. I'll Yeah.
What's your
Maybe
proudest
Anthony can text me and tell me a mistake I've made.
Do you know some?
Yeah, he probably does. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What's your proudest achievement?
Well, I don't know if it's proudest, but I'll just go with one of the first things that came to mind. So when I was the moderator of our church, First Congregational, it's an old building. It's a historic building. It's really quite beautiful. But it was not accessible for everybody. It was not accessible. All the spaces in the building were not accessible for people in wheelchairs or who had difficulty with mobility. And so I was the leader at the time, and to address this was going to require our church to actually accumulate some debt. And we did. We ended up leading through that, and that was actually a great example of where there was, some folks who very fiscally conservative and responsible, and like absolutely did not want us to do this. And we went through a process. It wasn't my decision to make; it was the congregation's decision to make. And so we went through a process of really listening to everybody about the tensions of, we really value and want this place to be accessible to everybody. We say that we're setting the table for all who hunger and thirst. Well, if they can't get to the table, how true is that? So we had to balance that tension with, and we also don't want to, put ourselves out of business as a church by going into a debt that we can't manage. So I'm very proud of the fact that I helped to lead us through that conversation that went for well over a year, and then a capital campaign, and now the building is accessible to everybody. I'm super proud of that.
Why do you think you're the most qualified candidate for the seat?
Well, I think I've said it. I think it's the experience of whether it's dealing with challenges and difficult situations in a therapy room with a family or a couple, or bringing a public-private set of entities together to achieve something at a really high level for 43 counties in the state of Colorado, with millions and millions of Medicaid dollars, and to do it well and to improve the care of people receiving mental health services. Or the last 18 years of coaching and working in organizations and developing even more the understanding that I have about how humans work together. I mean, I think that's what does it, and I think I'm uniquely qualified among the five of us running to bring that to City Council. Yeah.
Okay. What do you do for fun?
Well, I'm a road cyclist. I love to ride my bike. I've been riding really ever since I moved to Colorado. Really proud achievement of doing the triple bypass a few times. And so I love to ride my bike. I also have kind of a towny bike, so I'm a big biker. Have a dog, like to get out in the parks and open space like most people in Colorado. I love to work in my yard and garden, and read and yoga and, friends, and, probably like a lot of folks, but I would say biking is where I can't get on my bike and not be happy. So if I'm unhappy, I get on my bike, and it kind of improves my mood. So.
What's your dog's name?
Ella.
What kind of dog?
She's a rescue. She's kind of a lab. She's got maybe a little, I don't know what else she's got in her. She's got a husky tail.
Okay.
Yeah, she's pretty sweet. She's a little bizarre, but she's pretty sweet. We had a lab before her, a black lab, who was the dog of our lifetime. Our kids grew up with this dog, and it was like a 17-year relationship that was really painful when we lost Miles. All our dogs are named after jazz musicians.
Oh,
our first dog was trained.
Oh
yeah, I know.
Yeah, totally an aside.
I know.
Miles lived to be 17 though?
Yeah.
Holy
Our first dog was a husky, more what my husband calls just a showpiece dog. It was just pretty, but she didn't really like us all that much. She ran away a lot. She was trained after Coltrane, then Miles after Miles Davis, and Ella Fitzgerald, of course. So
maybe there'll be a Chick Corea next.
Maybe. No.
Did you think of a mistake you want to share?
Oh God, I knew that was coming. I haven't. I've been so focused on what I'm doing. I have them. I have many of them. Anthony, you got something you can throw out here for me?
Oh, I just think you should choose one and go with it.
Huh? Choose one
I
and
think
go
you
with
should
it?
just choose one and go with it.
All right. Well, okay. I'm embarrassed right now because I can't think of anything, especially after I showed you my sign.
You are frozen. We can
I
hear
am?
you, but yeah,
Oh, okay. Oh, well, see, there you go.
broadband. Your broadband service might have been a mistake.
There you go.
There we go.
There you go.
You're back.
No, I want to give you something meaningful, honestly, because I have learned from so many mistakes, and maybe I've just learned and they're not forefront in my mind.
Yeah.
I think, well, I can't tell you the details because it's so recent and it's about my campaign, and I'm not going to share the details of it, but
Okay.
recently made a mistake in sort of communication, and decided that instead of beating myself up about it, I needed to kind of track back with the person and open a conversation and apologize and say, won't happen again. I mean, I guess it just happens so much all the time. I probably, it's just a way of being for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I brought my husband in, I'm sure he could tell you with you. Yeah.
Well, we'll let you off the hook now. I don't have
If
any
I
other
think of one,
questions.
I'll send it to you. I promise. I'll probably wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh, here's the one I should have told them, and I'll send it to you and you can
Okay.
print it. All right.
Let's see if any of my colleagues have questions. Mary Jo, do you have anything?
Yeah, Colorado Springs Utilities is working on moving to renewables, but the rest of the city, I don't know, we have an abysmal recycling record, and we don't seem to be particularly attuned to what's going on with climate on the planet. A lot of municipalities have something along the order of a climate action plan that is a big picture sort of thing. How would you feel about something like that?
No, let's look at it. Let's explore that. I think that would be fantastic. I'd love to see us get a little more coordinated and aligned. I mean, if we're going to be doing this renewable energy thing, let's look at all of it. Let's look at everything. I'd be very interested. I know it's complicated. I mean, look, I just, recently, heard that, boy, everything I'm putting in my recycle bin isn't necessarily, it's just going into the, I'm like, it's a challenging issue. So I'm not an expert on it, but I'm certainly interested in what can we do to, reduce, reuse, recycle, all of those things. Absolutely. I will tell you that, and, I don't know, Anthony can't kick me under the table. I have never talked with Anthony about this, but we have so many garbage trucks that run up and down our streets all the time. I feel like there's some room potentially for what's the word? I mean, just kind of creating some greater synergy, and maybe less companies and a little more coordinated. I mean, I'm sure they use more fuel in collecting garbage and go to a lot of different places. And, I mean, we have a publicly owned utilities company, not that they want to get into the business of collecting garbage, but, how can we look at that and the impact that has on our roads, and maybe can we improve our recycling by looking at that? I have wondered that more just as a personal citizen who gets frustrated by how many different garbage companies there are and the impact on the roads and so forth. So I'm not running on that platform. I just want to say that it's something that personally bugs me.
Mary Jo, anything else?
No, thanks.
Ella?
I don't have anything, thanks.
Alyssa?
Yeah, you mentioned at the top that you really wanted to make communicating with the community part of your strategy. And I'm curious, how do you think council has fallen short in that regard? And how would you improve on council's communication methods?
Yeah, well, look, I haven't been a council member yet, so it's easy for me to say because I haven't tried to govern and be in communication with constituents. And I imagine it's probably harder than I imagine not having done it. I think each council person probably manages it differently. I haven't gone to look and see who's having regular town halls and so forth. I think being available, you know, first of all, just like the basic things like making sure people have a way to contact me, and creating, I'm doing town halls right now, virtual town halls. I want to continue to do that. Once I'm in virtually, now that we've got, everybody's got Zoom going on so well. Let's keep that going, continuing to knock on doors. Honestly, I have had so much fun meeting people in neighborhoods that some that I've never been in before. And I want to continue to do that because these are the people in my district and I have more to learn. So continuing to knock on doors, making myself available, and town halls, those kinds of things, office hours. But I would say as a whole, as a collective, I'd love to have the conversation with the council about what are some other ways that we can maybe this is a little pie in the sky, but if we can build a little more trust and connection about what we really value, are there ways that we can connect with folks through, like there's some great platforms like Bang the Table is a I think they're based out of Boulder even, that it's around community engagement and input. That can we use some tools like that to keep the communication going in between meetings, so you don't have to have you know, a 3-minute limit of people talking for, you know, 7 hours on an issue, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but is that the best way for us to be engaging our citizens? I think there might be some ways we can kind of start working on more effective ways of engaging our citizens. So those are a few thoughts I have, Alyssa.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, Alyssa? No? Okay. Any parting thoughts, Nancy?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. I appreciate the opportunity to be considered for an endorsement. I've been an Indy reader for a long time. And I've always actually paid very close attention to who the Indy endorses. So, you know, it matters to me. I hope I did well. Yeah, no, I just appreciate the time. And I would just, you know, say, you know, the journalism has an important role in governance and in good governance and keeping, you know, elected officials honest. So, you know, you'll ask the tough questions. I appreciate that. I respect it. I think we need to continue to, you know, have places where we can trust information that comes out. And so I'm very supportive of that, even if it feels uncomfortable at times. And again, I've never been a candidate before. I don't know how to do this. I don't really want to learn how to do this well, but you know, I want to govern.
All right.
Thank
The
you.
Indy will be releasing its endorsements mid-March, about when ballots come out. So we come out on Wednesdays. It'll either be March 10th or the 17th, somewhere around there.
Okay.
So,
yeah, and listen, I also completed a rather, I put a lot of time into responding to a 10 question questionnaire, which I also hope you'll be reflecting on and not just, you know, what came out of my mouth now, but because I put a lot of time and thought into that.
yeah.
So.
All right. Well, thank you, Nancy. Good luck.
Thanks a lot. Take
Right.
care.
Take care.
Thank
Have
you.
a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.